So hey guys, welcome to our latest workout session. And so for our session today, we have some equipment that we're going to utilize throughout our exercises. One is going to be a chair, which we're going to utilize for box squats and dips. We have a jug here that we can utilize for our either shoulder press or overhead carries. And we have a toolbox here which we could also use for overhead carries or shoulder press or step ups or bent over rows. So these are the only three things that we're going to use today. Again, it doesn't have to be the exact same things as these. You could utilize things similar or things that you have around your house that you think you could carry that adds the proper resistance and isn't too heavy, and it's just simple things around the house that you could use. So these are the things that I'm going to use, and now we're going to get into our workout, starting with our warm-up. Here we are with another exercise session, and just like the rest of them, we're going to start with our warm-up. We're going to have a general warm-up, 3 sets of everything, just to get our body nice and ready for exercise, and then we're going to have a specific warm-up for every movement that we're about to do. So for a general warm-up, we're just going to start off with some arm swings, just to get the blood flowing throughout our body. We're going to go for 30 seconds, we're going to go for 3 sets. So let's get our timers out. We'll have 30 seconds. And let's go. We're doing arm swings. Remember, stay loose. Just want your arms going back and forth right over your upper body. That's 30 seconds. We're going to rest for another 30 seconds and then go again. So it's important to do our warm-up, because before you perform any exercise, you want to get rid of the possibility of injury. So when your body's cold and you jump into exercise, you could injure yourself because your muscles aren't ready to perform any specific movements. So that's why we warm up, get our blood flowing, our muscles working, filling them with oxygen so they get ready to expand and contract. So here we go with another set of arm swings, 30 seconds. That's 30 seconds. We'll wait another 30 seconds and then do our last set of arm swings before we go into our next warm-up. Remember, when we're warming up, we want to warm up our whole body. So you could start with upper body, get that warm, move down to your lower body, get that warm, just so your whole body has blood flowing through it properly and it's ready and warm to perform any movement that you choose to do. So here we go for our last 30 seconds of arm swings. That's 30 seconds. We're gonna wait another 30 seconds, and we're gonna move on to our next warm up, which will just be like a bounce on our tippy toes. So we're gonna wait 30 seconds, and then we're gonna hop into that. Remember, do you have your water and your towel? It's a hot day out here in Texas, so in the summertime, remember to always stay hydrated, especially when working out outside. Rest is up. Now let's begin with our bounce. We're just going to be on our tippy toes, bouncing up and down softly, just to get our blood pumping from our toes up. So here you go, 30 seconds, and here we go. It's 30 seconds. We're going to rest 30 seconds and hit our next set. So remember, when you're performing these little bounces, to keep everything else on your body loose. You don't want to be stiffened up. You want to keep your arms loose, your upper body loose. Just have it swing, move around freely, just so it's not all tight. It's everything's loose and ready to roll. Alright, here we go, ready for set number 2. Here we go. It's 30 seconds. We'll wait another 30 seconds and we'll finish our last set of our bounces. So for this warm-up, it's just a general warm-up. Just see everything moving, nothing specific. It's just to get the blood flowing. And here we go, ready for our last set of these bounces. And we begin 30 seconds. It's 30 seconds, rest another 30 seconds. Now we're gonna hit a jog for 30 seconds, but for now we rest, catch your breath a little bit, and then we're gonna jog back and forth here. I'm in my backyard, so I'll go back and forth for a nice little limber jog. Nothing fast, nothing explosive, just really just to keep everything in motion. If you don't have enough room to jog, you could run in place. But for me, since I have my backyard, I'm gonna jog back and forth. Okay, we're gonna do our jog for 30 seconds. Just back and forth, slow, easy, just to get our body moving. 30 seconds, wait 30 seconds, and we're gonna jog again. If you want to complete this all at once, you could do everything for 1.5 minutes straight, each warm up. If you don't want to take time in between, if you feel like you just need that one long warm up, you could do that, and that's fine. It works just as well. But for now, we're resting in between in smaller sets, just so we're not overexerting ourselves before we actually start our exercises. So here we go for jog number 2. .30 seconds. Again, rest. And then we're going to do our last jog before we go into our specific warm-ups. Remember, the rest in between is just 30 seconds. You could go longer if you need to, but since we're not really exerting a lot of energy, we don't really have to rest as long. It's just to catch our breath and relax while we're warming up, so we're not working too hard. Alright, here's the last set of jogs. Here we go. It's 30 seconds. That finishes our general warm-up. Now we're going to take about a minute to rest, and then we're going to go into our specific warm-up. So for our first warm-up, for our specific warm-ups, we're going to do air presses, which is in essence a shoulder press with no weight, no resistance. We're just using our arms, going up and down, using our delts, just in an upward motion, just to get it nice and loose. We're going to go 3 sets, we're going to go 10 reps. Then we're going to rest for 30 seconds in between. So here we go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This first set. Now rest for 30 seconds before we start our next set. So with these we're loosening up our shoulder joints, our delts, our scapula, our traps, our upper chest. We're getting it nice and loose to perform our movement for our exercises. So it'll be ready to take on if we add resistance or any movements that we do that include our shoulders, but it'll be prepared for resistance or pressure that we put on it. So here we go for set number 2. Set of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Set number 2. One more set of these. We rest for 30 seconds. So when you're performing any overhead motion, you want your feet planted firmly under you, flat on the ground. You can have them shoulder width apart, get you a nice base. You want your stomach, core, and abs tucked in, really strong and flexed. You want your hips sunken back a little bit underneath you, just so you have that base. You're sitting on top of them. And when you're coming down, you want to absorb everything with your lower half of your body. When pushing up, you want to extend everything over your head. As far as your breathing, you want to suck up while you're pushing up, you want to squeeze your glutes so it's really holding you strong and steady. So here we go for our last set of air presses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That was our air presses. We're gonna rest 30 seconds and before we go into our next specific warm-up. So for specific warm-up number 2, we're gonna use a chair. And we're going to be performing a box squat, which is just pretty much getting you in the rhythm of performing a proper way to squat before we do actual squats. So what our box squats are going to do is we're going to sit back, hips back, drop our butt. Once we feel and touch the chair, we're shooting back up, and then we're hitting the movement again. I'm going to do 3 sets of this. 10 reps, slow and steady, easy, just so we're loosening up our knee joints, ankles, we're firing our quads, glutes, hamstrings, and our whole lower body. So here we go, set number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Set number 1, we're going to rest for 30 seconds and do it again. If you want a higher chair, you can get a higher chair. If you want to add something to the chair, so you're sitting higher when you're not going into a deep squat, just so you save your knees and your quads and your hamstrings and your glutes for the actual exercise. This is just a warm-up. Remember, we just want our muscles warm and ready to fire whenever we need them to. Here we go. Get ready for set number 2. Set number 2, another set of 10. Remember, feet shoulder width apart, could be slightly wider. And we squat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Set number 2, we have one more set of these. Now we're resting. So remember, when we're performing a squat, we want our hips back, drop down like we're sitting in a chair. So it's just using proper form, technique, so we get the right benefits and we take away the risk of injury. So here we go, ready to perform our final set of these box squats or chair squats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That finishes off our box squats. Now we're going to go to our final specific warm-up.
Yeah.
Here we go, rest is up. Now for our final specific warm-up, we're going to do a push-up to get our elbow joints, shoulder girdle, our chest, our back, and our core all working and loosened up. So we're not going to hit them really for hard working sets. We're just going to do sets of 5 just to get them nice and loose. 3 sets. And here we go. First set of push-ups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's set number 1. We're going to rest 30 seconds, and we're going to complete our set number 2. So if you want to preserve yourself even more, you could hit a modified push-up, which could be on your knees, just in the same up and down motion. Or we could do it on a wall, slightly at an angle, This is a pull, but you could do a wall where you'd be wider, and we're just pushing back and forth, just so you're not putting yourself through too much stress before our actual exercises. So here we go for set number 2. More push-ups, 5 reps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Set number 2, rest 30 seconds. We're gonna do a final set, and then we're gonna begin our actual working sets and all of our exercises. About 5 seconds. Let's get down in our push-up position. Get ready to begin. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That completes our push-ups. That completes our warm-up. We're gonna rest 90 seconds, and then we're gonna start with our strength and power exercises. All right, so we're ready to begin with our strength and power exercises. Our first exercise we're gonna perform is going to be a shoulder press. So we're gonna need to add resistance. For me, I'm using a toolbox. You could use a toolbox, and if it's too empty, you could empty it out and just use the shell. If that's too heavy still, we could use anything around the house, such as we could get bottles of water or jugs of milk or things of that nature, anything just to add a little resistance for our shoulder press. And we're not doing this individual, we're doing that a compound movement. So you would want to use something that you could use both hands with. So here we go. We're going to do 3 sets of 10. Here's our first set. And just like our warm-up, we're just going straight overhead, come back down, and straight up again. So here we go. Set number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Set number 1. Now we're going to rest for 90 seconds. We're going to come back and do it again. So remember, when we're performing anything overhead and overhead press, strong base, tight core, squeeze your glutes to bring everything in an upward motion. We lock out our elbows at the top, and then we bring it down slowly back to our starting stage, and then we're up again. Everything in one fluid movement, everything tight, everything flexed. Keep your base strong, and you will eliminate risk of injury. All right, here we go for set number 2 of our overhead press. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Set number 2 of overhead press complete. Rest 90 seconds. We're going to hit our final set. So remember, whenever you're doing anything in the standing position, you want to have an athletic stance. So you want everything about shoulder width apart. You don't want to have your knees locked because it cuts off blood circulation. So keep your knees slightly bent, not all the way, so you're not putting pressure on your knees or your quads when we're not working them, but slightly bent, not locked, and just keeps you in a strong, firm position, ready to perform your exercises. So we're resting 90 seconds, then we're going to complete our final set of our shoulder presses. So here you go for set number 3, our final set, as these overhead presses, modified overhead presses. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It completes our overhead press movement. Now we're going to take 90 seconds and move on to our next movement. So remember, for our overhead press movements, any resistance helps, whether it be a toolbox, an empty toolbox, jugs of water or milk, water bottles, anything you can use around the house. If you do have resistance bands, they would work perfectly, but I understand not everyone has workout equipment at home. But if you do, feel free to use them and the benefits will be there. But for now, we're resting our 90 seconds before we move on to our next movement. So for our next strength and power movement, we're going to be performing an air squat. So we've done these before, like in our warm-up with the chair, but now we're just doing it without the chair. So we're going to get about 90 degrees in our knee angle. Make sure we break our hip crease so we're going the proper depth. And we're going to do 3 sets of 10. So here we go. Feet about shoulder width apart. Have your toes pointed straight or slightly outward. And we're just going to drop down just like we're sitting in a chair. Hips back, butt down, and we're coming straight up. So here goes, first set of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's set number 1. We're going to rest 90 seconds and then perform set number 2. Here we go for set number 2 of our air squats. Set of 10. We begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's set number 2. We're going to rest 90 seconds, perform our last set of 10. So remember, you can add resistance if you wanted to. Preferably something that you could hold on the top of your back with your arms a little stretched out, about wider than shoulder width, just so you're not putting added pressure on your shoulder joints. If you feel skilled enough, you could hold it in front of you and we could go down as such. But we're doing these, so we're doing it without resistance, just to take away any chances of injury. And they're just as beneficial. And if you think you could do more, you could just add reps, so you're working the muscle even more instead of adding that resistance and doing less reps. So we're taking a rest for 90 seconds and then we're going to finish set number 3. So here comes set number 3 and our last set of these air squats. For these, I know we're supposed to do 10, but I'm going to show you how it is to add reps so that we're working even harder. As we progress through these exercises, your body's going to get stronger, so you're going to be able to perform more. So I'm going to show you what it's like to perform past 10 reps, so I'm going to go to 20 reps. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So that's 20 reps. It's just added reps to our 10, which as we progress, we're going to do more reps. We won't jump all the way to 20, but we'll go up in increments. But I just wanted to show you what it'd be like to do it past our normal 10 reps. So for now, we're going to rest 90 seconds before we go into our next exercise. For our next exercise, we're going to be performing a bent over row. So all you're going to be doing is we're going to have a bend at the hips, slight bend at the knees, chest at a 45-degree angle. And what we're going to do is we're going to have our arms out below us. And we're going to squeeze back with our lats. We're going to drop them, stretch them all the way out forward, and we're going to squeeze back again. again, that's without resistance. But for me, I'm going to perform it with resistance, so I'm going to use my trusty toolbox. You could add resistance if you need to or if you want to, but the way I showed you, you don't need resistance. Just make sure that you focus on the contraction of the muscle at the top of the pull, and you squeeze about half a second or a second and really get that muscle flexing, so it's as if you do have resistance. But for me, I'm going to show you what it is to do it with resistance, and we're going to do 3 sets of 10. So here we go. So number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's our set number 1. Okay, that completes set number 1 for our bent over rows. I did it with added resistance. You could do it without resistance. And just remember, have a strong base as always. Feet underneath you, shoulder width. We're going to have a bend at the hips. We're going to have our chest high. And we're going to have our arms down, reach below us. And when we squeeze back, we're squeezing our lats to pin it to the middle of our back. And then when we release and drop our hands down again, we want that lat to fully stretch coming forward and then retract it back again. And that's how you would perform these repetitions. But for now, we're going to rest 90 seconds before we go into set number 2. Here we go now for set number 2 of our bent over rows. Now I'm going to perform this set without resistance. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That was set number 2 of bent over rows. That was me performing it without resistance to show you the squeeze that you have to really do at the top of performing that exercise, whether it be a lift with resistance or just an exercise with body weight. You want that squeeze with your lats squeezing back to really get that muscle working and get the true benefits of this exercise. But now we're going to rest for 90 seconds and then we're going to finish off with our last set. Okay, here we go for our last set of bent over rows. This time back with the resistance for me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That completes our bent over rows. Now we're going to rest 90 seconds before we get into our next exercise. So with these bent over rows, you're really working the posterior chain of your body. So you're working your latissimus dorsi, you're squeezing your scapula, you're working your trapezius and your lower back. And the whole time you want your core tight and flexed while you're in the bent position to keep yourself balanced so you're not falling forward. And you want to keep your hips back and your glutes back to keep it as an anchor. So you just want everything balanced underneath you so you're really stable during performing the exercise. So now, with our rest almost up, we're going to begin with our side lunges. So that's our rest. So now moving on to our side lunges, which is going to be a lateral movement instead of a forward motion or a backward motion. So what a forward lunge is would be lunging forward, we're dropping our knee, we're extending our quads, and then we're flexing on the way back up, coming up to our starting position, and we switch legs and do it again. And it'd be the same thing if we're going backwards, we're just dropping our leg back behind us. For now, we're going to go lateral. So the leg in which we're going to lunge on is the one that's gonna be moving laterally, and then our other leg is gonna act as an anchor, and it's not gonna move. It's just gonna stretch at the hip and follow our body going in the lunging direction. So this is how you perform a side lunge. Just we're moving sideways, we're lunging, bending at the knee, extending our quad, and then we're pressing back up to our starting position. Notice that our opposite leg didn't move, didn't leave the ground, acts as our anchor and holds us stable. And then once we're back at our starting position, we go the opposite direction, same thing, we're coming back to the starting position. So we're gonna do a set of 10 of those, 5 each leg. We're gonna perform 3 sets. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's how we perform our side lunges or lateral lunges. Now we're gonna rest 90 seconds before we get into our next set. So with our side or lateral lunges, we're really focusing on opening our hips and using our glutes as a true stabilizer, and the powerful muscle that it is, it's holding us up on our opposite side, and when we're pushing up, we're flexing our glute and we're bringing us back to the starting position. We're also using, like in any other lunge, we're using our quads and our hamstrings. And even when we're pressing up, back forward, we're still using our calves. And really it focuses on our ankle stability. It's a great lower body movement to get out of our basic squats and regular lunges. It really helps on hip movement and stability. Okay, here goes for our second set of lateral lunges. We begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Get our 90 seconds ready for rest before you hit our last set. So I know I'm emphasizing a lot on that this is really working stability, which it is, but this is ultimately a strength and power movement. We're building strength in our lower body, in our major muscle groups such as quadriceps, calves, glutes, and hamstrings. We're working all of those major muscle groups, which are large muscle groups, and we're really getting them stronger and building that muscle and strength that we need to really help ourselves perform in anything in everyday life. So for now we're resting, then we have a final set of these lateral lunges before we move on in our strength exercises. Alright, here we go for our final set of lateral lunges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That concludes our lateral lunges. Now we're going to rest for 90 seconds before we start to perform our next strength exercise. Hope you guys are feeling the benefits of all of these movements, whether it be upper body or lower body. These are all strength movements, and they're really working to help you build muscle and get your muscles stronger and more dense, and so you're able to protect those bones and make them stronger for longer. So here we are, resting before we get into our next exercise. For our next strength movement, we're going to perform our chair dips. So in a dipping motion, you're holding yourself up. You have your legs sprawled out in front of you. They could be bent or they could be straight out. So we're going to bend at the elbows, really stretching out our triceps, lock our elbows at the top, and flex the triceps and really squeeze at the top of the movement with our arms straightened out. And then we're going to go down and back up again. We're going to perform 3 sets of 10. So you could do this with a chair or a bench or anything that really is a couple feet above the ground, just to give you enough room to have the up and down movement so you're not touching the ground when you're performing this exercise. So here we go. Set number 1 of our dips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's set 1 of our dips. We're going to rest 90 seconds before we go into our set number 2. So for this exercise, we're really focusing on our triceps, our chest, a little bit of lateral delts, rear delts, and some scapula. And of course core, because we want our core tight and flexed with every exercise. Especially with this one, we don't want anything loose, we want everything tight while we're performing the exercise. So now we're resting before we get into our next set. And it's going to be another set of chair dips for another 10 reps. So here we go for set number 2 of our tricep dips using our chair. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That concludes set number 2 of our tricep dips. Remember, we're focusing on the flexion and extension of our triceps. So when our elbows are bent and we're in our down position, our triceps are flexing or contracting, and then when we're at the top, they're in extension, and you really want to squeeze at the top because that's where all our blood needs to flow when our triceps are flexed, and that's what helps them grow. So now we're resting, and then we have one last set of these tricep extensions or dips with a chair. Here we go for our last set of our chair dips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That concludes this exercise of chair dips. And if you wanted, if you're able to perform, and or if you think you're ready, you could add resistance to this exercise. You could just simply lay an object on your legs while they're spread out or even bent. So it just adds resistance to the middle of your body, just adding weight to yourself while you do these dips, because it is a body weight motion. But that's a way you can add resistance if you feel like you need to or if you want to, just to add some difficulty to the exercise if you feel like you're ready. But if not, this is still a great exercise to perform and still gains tons of strength. All you need is chair, bench, or anything to hold yourself up and give you room for the flexion and extension of your triceps, and just to get that elbow bend that you need to perform the proper depth of this exercise. But that concludes this exercise, and now we're resting before we start our next exercise. So for our next and final exercise of our strength and power, we're going to be performing a staggered RDL, which is a Romanian deadlift. We're going to do this just body weight. And so we're going to perform it staggered, which is your feet are going to be staggered, one leg in front of the other slightly. And we're going to bend forward at the hips, keep our leg straight, maybe a slight bend, but enough to where we're really on our way down. We're reaching for our toe or the ground. We're really extending the hamstring, and then we're flexing it as we come back up. So we're working our hamstrings, we're working our glutes, we're working ankle stability and hip stability, and our quads are really staying flexed as we're standing on this planted leg with our other leg staggered just on its toe, just pretty much as an anchor. So we're going to perform this for 3 sets, 10 reps each leg, so a total of 20 reps. And here we go for set number 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we switch legs. Opposite leg forward, other leg back. Same movement. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's us performing a staggered leg RDL. Now we're going to take a 90 seconds break before we start set number 2. So this, we're really focusing on strengthening our hamstrings, which is the posterior part of our legs. Our hamstrings is a really long, big muscle with 2 heads at the bottom right before it catches up to the knee. And what we're doing is we're elongating it while we're reaching down, but it's staying flexed and tight. And then once we're coming back up, it's contracting and we're squeezing at the top using our glutes. So it all meets at our top, right at the bottom of the glute, and we're strengthening that muscle to keep our hamstrings wide and strong, and really helps us perform any other movements. It helps us with our squat if we're in the weight room and we're doing regular deadlifts with a compound motion, or if we're jumping or running. That's what our hamstrings really help and benefit with. So that's our rest, and now we're gonna perform set number 2 of our staggered RDLs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's set number 2. Now time to begin our rest before we start our final set and end off on a strong note for our strength and power exercises. Okay, now time for our final set of stagger RDLs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That concludes this exercise, and it also concludes our strength and power portion of these exercise prescription. Now we're going to take 90 seconds rest, and then we're going to go into our core exercises. Now we're going to begin with our core exercises, and our first exercise is a good old-fashioned sit-up, and it is okay. So we're going to perform 3 sets of 10 of these. So I'm sure everyone's done a sit-up in their day. What we're doing is laying on flat on our back. We're going to have our knees bent. You can have an anchor on your feet or something to press your feet up against so you're not moving. We have our hands on our head or on our chest. Now what we're going to do is sit up all the way till we're up to our knees, and then we lay back down, and that's 1. So what we're doing is using our abdominals to contract and squeeze and pull us up, and then we're extending them on the way down, keeping them nice and tight and keeping your core engaged and in, and don't be pressing it out. So here we go. Begin for set number 1 of sit-ups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's sit-ups. We're gonna have 2 more sets of this. Now we're gonna rest 60 to 90 seconds, whichever you'd prefer, how much you need. For me, I'm gonna rest 60 seconds. So always have your timer ready. So a sit-up is good because it uses all of our abdominal lining. So it's working all of our abs. It's working our obliques. It's really working all of your core, it's pulling your body up and holding yourself up is what core is and what you use. And it's really important to keep your core strong, because the stronger your core is, the stronger the rest of your exercises could be, and or lifts if you're still in the gym. Now we're resting. I'm resting 60 seconds before we get into set number 2 of our sit-ups. So here we go, set number 2. And we begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Set number 2 for sit-ups. Another 60 to 90 seconds rest. And then we continue with our last set of sit-ups. Here we go for our last and final set of our sit-ups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That concludes our sit-ups. Now we're gonna rest for 60 to 90 seconds before we start our next core movement.
Okay.
Okay, for our next core movement, we're gonna do leg lifts. So we're gonna be laying flat on the ground, and all we're gonna do is just keep our legs above ground, and we're just gonna lift them at a 90-degree angle, come back down without touching the floor, and lift them back up again. It's just up and down movement with our legs. focusing on our lower abdominals, but still working majority of our abdominals, but the main focus would be on our lower ones. So our lower abs are very important for basic living, for walking, for running. If you have an injury to your lower abs, you really can't do much. So it's important to keep your lower abs strong, because it helps with a lot of lower body movement. So here we go, we're gonna lay flat on the ground. Hands to our side, legs all the way out, lift off the ground, and we're up 90 degrees, down, up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's our leg lifts. Set number 1. We have 2 more sets. Now we're going to rest 60 to 90 seconds before we get into set number 2. Set number 2 of our leg lifts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Set number 2, now 60 and 90 seconds rest before we finish with set number 3 for leg lifts. We go last and final set of our leg lifts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's our leg lifts. Now we're going to rest 30 to 90 seconds and go into our final core exercise. Okay, so our final core exercise is going to be mountain climbers. So we're going to be in the push-up position. All we're going to do is bring one knee at a time, tucked into our chest, bring it back, bring the other knee tucked into our chest, and we're going to do it continuously for time, which is going to be 20 seconds. We're going to be performing 3 sets. So have our clocks ready for 20 seconds. Get in our stance. We're going to begin. So here we go. Begin. That's 20 seconds. Now take a 60 to 90 second break. We're going to continue with set number 2. Alright, time for set number 2. 20 seconds on the clock. Remember, this is another lower abdominal exercise. But you're also working your other abs by using it to tuck in our knees and really squeeze once we're tucked, and then extend for our stretch. Remember, you don't have to do them as fast as I'm doing them. You could do them at your own pace, one leg at a time. Just really focus on that lower ab contraction with each knee.
Okay. Okay.
Here we go for our last set. 20 seconds on the clock. And we begin. That's 20 seconds. Now we take our 60 to 90 second break, and we're going to move on with the rest of our exercises.
Okay.
Okay, now we're starting our balance and stability exercises. So for our first exercise, we're going to do a single arm carry. which is known as a farmer's carry, but it's just a carry. So what you're going to do is, I'm using a toolbox. You could use anything. You could use a suitcase. You could use anything that you're able to grasp and hold in one hand. You could use a jug, anything with a handle. So what we're going to do is, we're going to hold it in one hand. Now what we're going to do is walk across to the other side of the grass or wherever you're going to be. And then once you get to the other side, you switch hands and you walk back. And that's set number 1, and we're going to do 3 sets of these carries. So let's get in our starting position. Grab it in one hand, and we're walking. Switch hands, walk back. Set it down slow and proper. And that's 1 set. We're going to perform 3 sets. So with our carries, we're holding a weight on one side, balancing with the opposite side. We could have our hand out slightly to really hold as an anchor. We're using the opposite obliques to respond to holding the weight on the other side. And all we're doing is just focusing on staying upright and not leaning towards the heavier side. And that's why we switch sides coming back, so you work both sides and you work both sides of the body. So now we're gonna rest for about 60 seconds and then go at it again. All right, here we go for set number 2. Switch hands. That's set number 2. So to make it easier for you guys, for each hand you're taking 12 steps. So 12 steps with our right hand, 12 steps with our left hand, and that completes the set. So that's set number 2. We're going to rest for 60 seconds and finish off with set number 3. So here we go for set number 3. Switch hands. That's set number 3. That concludes our carries or our farmer's walks. And now, instead of going straight into our rest, we're going to go into set number 1 of cardio. So for a cardio, we're going to do a modified burpee. So instead of a burpee going push up to knees to jump, all we're going to do is we're going to start in a push-up position. We're going to just hop up and complete without a jump to the air. But we can reach to the sky, and we do bend our knees, get back down into a push-up position, get back down to a squat position, and just stand up straight. So that's our modified burpee, and we're going to do 10 reps of that. So here we go. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's our first set of cardio. Now we're going to rest 90 seconds and go back into our next balance exercise. Okay, so for our next balance and stability exercise, we're going to do an overhead carry. So again, I'm going to use my trusty toolbox, but for you guys, just use anything that you could hold over your head. It does not have to be heavy. It's just to add resistance or get yourself able to holding something over top of your head and to give you that stability and balance using all of your core stability, shoulder stability, knee stability, and ankle stability, and just be able to perform a walk if you need to carry something over your head, if you're helping someone carry something, if you're moving objects in your house, stuff like that. This just helps you in those circumstances. So what you're going to do is get your object. We're going to hold it over our heads, arms locked, elbows locked, and we're just going to walk. So we're just going to walk in one direction. So it'll be a total of 12 steps. We're going to do 3 sets of these. So I'm going to start on this side. Over our head. Keep our core in nice and tight, and we're just walking. Turn around. Set it down. That's one set. We have 2 more sets. Now we're going to rest for 60 seconds. Alright, here we go for set number 2. And just to show you guys an example of something else that you could carry overhead for this exercise, this is a full juice jug. So you just hold it over your head like that as you walk. And it just adds that added resistance that you need to really utilize that stability and balance. So you could do it with a full jug, half full, quarter full, or even empty, just to give you a feeling of what it is to hold something over your head. It does not have to be heavy at all. Or even if you don't think you're able or capable of holding an object over your head while you're walking, to practice, you could just have your hands straight up in the air and you just walk. Again, since your arms are in the air and you have to focus on holding them up while you're walking, you're still using your mind to make that connection with your body to help yourself balance. So even that's an option, but here we go for set number 2 with our overhead walks. That's set number 2. Now we're going to rest for 60 seconds and then finish off with set number 3. Alright, here we go for our final set of overhead walks. That concludes our overhead walks, but now instead of going straight into our rest before our next stability exercise, we're going to do another set of modified burpees for our cardio. So here we go. It's another set of 10. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we're going to rest 90 seconds and then go into our final stability exercise. So for our final set of balance and stability, we're going to be doing a side plank for 20 seconds each set, but we're going to modify it a little bit. So for our side plank, usually be on the ground on our elbow and our legs out, and we lift our hips and legs both off the ground, just using our obliques and our core to hold ourselves up. But instead, to make it slightly easier, have our knees bent, we're going to keep one leg on the ground and we're just going to lift our hip off the ground. We're still working our obliques and our core, but it's just making ourselves a little lighter. So we're gonna go 20 seconds, and this is set number 1, and we begin. That's set number 1. And then we're gonna switch sides and go for another 20 seconds. Remember, keep your leg on the ground, just lift your hip up, and just keep that oblique tight. It's 20 seconds. That completes set number 1. Now we're gonna rest for about 60 to 90 seconds and then go for set number 2. Here you go, set number 2. Side planks, 20 seconds. It's 20 seconds. Then we switch sides. 20 seconds again. Here we go. It's 20 seconds. Now again, rest for 60 to 90 seconds. And then we'll conclude with set number 3. Here we go for our final set of side planks. For 20 seconds each side, and we begin. Switch sides. It's 20 seconds. Now we're going straight into our last set of modified burpees for our cardio. Remember, it's a set of 10. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's your cardio. Now we're going to rest for 90 seconds and then move into speed and agility. Okay, so now we're going to begin with our speed and agility portion. And our first exercise is going to be bounds. So basic bound is just a hop or a jump forward. So we're going to start feet shoulder width apart, slight bend at the knees, athletic stance. And we're just going to hop forward and land with our knees slightly bent. Absorb all of the pressure with our quads and not our knees, not our ankles, and not our feet. So we're not exploding, but we're just hopping forward, reset, hopping forward, reset. And it's just going to be 3 sets, 5 bounds each. So here we go. That's set number 1. Now we're going to take about 60 seconds rest, 60 to 90 seconds, and begin set number 2. Here we go for set number 2 of our balance. Remember, we're just leaping. We're using a little bit of hip drive to move ourselves forward. We're jumping off the balls of our feet, utilizing our calves. We're having a strong foundation, our base, really having focus on our glutes, hamstrings, and quads with our slight knee bend. And when we land, we're absorbing with those muscles, so we could just rebound right off the floor and hop again. So we go for set number 2, another set of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And remember to utilize arm drive to really help project ourselves forward. That's set number 2. We have one more set. Now take a 60 to 90 second break before we start our last set of our balance. Here we go, last set of our balance, set number 3, last set of 5. That's 5. We finish our balance. Take another 60 to 90 second rest before we go into our next speed and agility exercise. So for our final speed and agility exercise, we're going to do a step over. So again, I have my trusty toolbox, but you could use any step or anything, maybe about a foot, 6 inches off the ground, just easy, just to step over, one leg at a time, step back, you're in a proper upright stance, step over, back, upright stance. You could just utilize a little hip lift, hip lift, hip lift, hip lift, and we're just sliding one step over, one step over, one step back, one step back. So we're gonna do a total of 10, so it's 5 each leg. So here's set number 1. 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. So that's how you perform simple step over. Now we're going to rest for about 60 seconds and then go into set number 2. So here we go for our set number 2 of our step overs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Set number 2 of our step overs. We have one more set. Take a 60 second break. Here we go for our last set of step overs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That concludes our step overs and concludes in our speed agility. Now we're going to go into our cool down. So now that we've finished our speed and agility and our other exercises, we're going into our cool down. So first off, right after you finish, you would stop, breathe, catch your breath. And as we're catching your breath, start a walk. So we're not letting any lactic acid build up in your muscles. So you keep them loose and get them ready to stretch and elongate. So we're walking for about a minute to 2 minutes Just like get ourselves to catch our breath. Just relax and loosen up after we put our body through stress through the exercises. That's our walk. Once we're relaxed, we're cooled down, our breath is caught, we begin with our upper body stretches first. So we're going to do a simple cross body stretch, stretching our shoulders, triceps, biceps, chest, and lats, holding for about 30 seconds. Then we switch sides, same thing, holding for 30 seconds. Make sure to breathe and relax. For a shoulder stretch, we get a pole or a wall. All we're doing is reaching up, palm flat on the surface, and we're climbing until our obliques or our lats or side of our body is touching the wall or pole with our arm extended straight above us. And we're holding that for about 30 seconds, really stretching out our shoulders, triceps, and lats. Switch sides. And then we're going to get on the ground and get into somewhat of a yoga pose. We're going to get into downward dog. So our hands, our arms are spread out in front of us, palms flat on the ground, and we stretch back, head down, and really lifting up our shoulder girdle and our upper back. Stretching it forward, pulling our hips back for about 30 seconds. And then we're going to get down flat on our stomachs. We're going to lift our chest up, point our chest towards the sky, and we're stretching out our abs. Breathing. I'm going to hold that 20 to 30 seconds. Now we're going to stand back up, stand straight, reach down to our toes, get our hamstring stretch, hold, count about 30 seconds. Stand back up. We're going to get down on one knee. And we're going to push our hips forward. And we're going to hold that position, really stretching our hips and our lower back. Holding it for about 30 seconds. Breathing. We're going to switch legs. Other leg forward. Pushing our other hip forward. Holding for about 30 seconds. Really getting our hips opened up. Now we're going to get our quad stretch, lifting up our leg, holding it, pulling back, stretching our quads and hips, holding for about 30 seconds. I'm going to switch legs. Same thing, same hold. We're going to get down, do cross leg stretch, one leg over the other, twisting your torso to the opposite side of the leg and pulling your leg and twisting your torso, really opening, working out your lower back and your glutes, getting them stretched. Switch legs. And that's our cool down. That concludes our exercises. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys felt the benefits, and I hope you guys keep exercising and attacking your fitness.